My name is Sammy Johnson-Helms, and I'm the Executive Director and Principal Clarinet of the Terre Haute Symphony Orchestra. We are working hard to get ready for Disney in concert tomorrow, so I hope to see you all there. I am pleased to introduce to you our Principal Harp, Harriet Moore. She has been with the symphony for 25 plus 30
32.
Something, lots and lots of years. So I am thrilled to have her here, especially here in person, to present the harp, a little bit about how the instrument works, its development, and then she'll perform for us. I almost didn't want to start. I just wanted to listen to her play for the rest of the afternoon. So please welcome Harriet Moore.
Thank you, Sam. So good to be here. Yes, I thought I would talk about the harp today, a bit about the history of the harp, and then also about how it works. So I will do that, but I thought first I'd start with a piece called La Source. It's by Alphonse Hasselmans, and it was written in the late 1800s. So it was actually written for a pedal harp. Hopefully it will sound like flowing water to you. The harp is one of the oldest instruments. We believe that the earliest harps developed from the bow and arrow. So when the hunter was perhaps hunting, they heard the sound of the string perhaps and thought that sounds pleasant, and then they added more strings to give more pitches to the bow. So the first harps looked like bows. Okay. And it will be the brown one. Yes, that one's a little later. So these are the bow harps that you can see, and they are very old. Some date from this one, I think, from 1500 BC, and then this one from almost 2000 BC. So it's just very old, and neat that we have some of these in museums. There are also wall paintings in ancient Egyptian tombs, and they show the bow-shaped harp around 3000 BC or so. You can show that next one. So here are some images from those tombs on the walls. Gradually, harps evolved, and in the Middle Ages, around 700 AD or so, the triangled harp came into existence, and that's sturdier and stronger and can actually have stronger strings that have stronger volume. So that was a big advancement, and that was about 10 or 11 strings at first, and then gradually they added to about 30 strings on those small harps. And in the 8th century, the small Celtic harp was very popular in ancient Ireland, in the courts of kings. And they actually said in one of the things I read that they were required to play music to evoke laughter, tears, or sleep. So I thought that was interesting. Eventually, harpers became minstrels and street musicians. And there's a harp, yes, here that is the Irish harp from 800 AD, you can see. The small Celtic harp is still popular today. And even in Wales, it's the national instrument. And so there are very many good harpers today, and they play a harp that looks something like this, would be the modern day small harp, probably sits this tall. And I have some students that take harp, and they often start on an instrument like this, and sometimes people just stay with a smaller harp, and that's lovely. You don't have to graduate to a pedal harp. There are 3 main parts to the harp. This is the column, the neck, and the sounding board. Another thing that people don't often realize is that we have different colored strings. C is red, and F is black. And that's enough so that we know where we are. Otherwise, you would have nothing to go on. It's just very important. I always have extra C's and F's in my bag in case one of those breaks. This next piece that I'm going to play for you is actually a piece that could be played on a non-pedal harp. It could be played on a smaller harp. And I just thought I should give you an idea that there are many pieces that can be played on the smaller harp. Oh, and you'll know this piece. This is Green Sleeves, an Old English tune. as I said, that piece could be played on a smaller harp, and it probably might not have quite such large chords actually, but it would be possible to play green sleeves on a smaller harp. And the reason for that is that it's mainly using the diatonic scale, which is basically the white keys of the piano. So not many to speak of sharps or flats. So not the black notes of the piano. If you needed a black note on the or a sharp or flat, you would actually have to retune a string. So that's a difficulty, or you'd have a little lever that you press up. So it is very limited, having just the diatonic scale. So this was a big problem for the harp. If you wanted all 88 notes of the piano, for instance, you would basically have to have a harp this is 47 strings, so you'd need to have a harp that went out to about right here. And I guess you'd run back and forth, like, I'm not sure, but you just couldn't reach it. It would be impossible. So this was such a dilemma that they were trying to figure out for years how to solve this problem. And I think they came up with some really interesting inventions that I wanted to share with you. In the 1600s, they came up with the triple harp, and that is 3 rows of strings. So imagine another row here and another row here of strings. So you're playing along like on the white keys, and then if you need a black note, you'd reach in further to get the sharp or the flat. It just sounds almost amazing to me that anyone could play such an instrument. But there is a picture of one, and you can see there the 3 rows. Isn't that interesting? 3 rows of strings. That's the triple strung harp. And then in the 1800s, they came up with the chromatic cross-strung harp, which was also amazing. It's like the strings are this way, and they could be under one column, but they also made one where they made them crisscross and had both another neck and another column. And there's a picture of that. So that's another invention. They were really working hard to find a way to be able to play all these notes. But in 1700, Jacob Hochbrucker invented finally the single action pedal harp. So at least they thought of pedals. That made a tremendous difference. And so that led to the double action pedal harp, which is what I have here today with me. It's a little more advanced, but it's definitely the same idea. That was invented in 1801 by Sebastian Erard. And so the way these pedals work, I'll explain it to you. They give you basically all of the notes, all the sharps and flats, all the white and black keys of the piano. So what you have is 7 pedals, and I'll turn it and hopefully you're able to see at least some of them. This is the D pedal, C, B, E, F, G, A. So each note has a pedal, and the pedal rods go up through the column and will move these discs when you press the pedal. So for instance, first let me show you that this would be the flat position, and then they have the natural, and then they have the sharp. So there are 3 positions for every pedal. So when you're, for instance, when I want to play C, remember C is red, and I will have you maybe watch this disc here. Here's a C flat. And now watch this disc and it'll shorten it. That's C natural, and then I press it again and I'll have C sharp. So I get 3 tones for every string. So that is how they solved it. It does mean our feet have to work quite a bit, but that's okay. You just learn your pedals really well. But it's such a wonderful system. And then you sometimes have to get this regulated to make sure it stays in tune with every position. But it's just a wonderful thing. This next piece uses pedals a lot. So maybe you'll see my feet moving. It's called Marguerite at the Spinning Wheel. It's by Albert Zabel, written also in the late 1800s, I believe. This piece, I thought you might want to listen for a kind of a story behind it. It's from Goethe's Faust, and it's Marguerite is spinning at her spinning wheel. And she's thinking about the man she loves and their great romance, and just it's very beautiful. And then she remembers or realizes he has left her, and she throws down her spinning wheel, and the spinning wheel's on the floor, and it's just going around and around, and it just finally stops. And you sort of think maybe it symbolizes she feels her life is over or something. But then after a pause, she picks it up and she starts to spin again. And I feel like that symbolizes she can go on with her life. So I'm not sure how accurate that story is, but one of my teachers taught it to me, and now I've been spreading it to other students. So, but it makes a lot of sense. You'll hear when I throw down the spinning wheel, it's a big C chord at the top, and maybe you'll be able to hear how that spinning wheel stops. So this is Marguerite at the Spinning Wheel by Albert Zabel.
looking for green. Let me see that one.
Batteries.
Nope, I've got some.
So for my final piece, I thought I'd show you the many sound effects that are possible on the harp. This piece is called Chanson dans la Nuit, Song in the Night by Carlos Salcedo. And this one's more modern, written in the 1900s. And he just incorporates all these great sound effects. So you might listen for these. I'll demonstrate them so you can watch for them. Usually, did you know we play in the middle of the strings? So that's normally where we play. But when he wants this special effect, he'll say, go down next to the sounding board. So it's more of a guitar-like effect. Another one that's often used that you heard in Marguerite is the glissando. And that's very pretty. You could just run your finger along the strings. My husband's good at that. not too hard. Then you can also do a harmonic where you, instead of playing, for instance, this would be the way the note sounds normally, you can have it with your hand and make it sound an octave higher. And so it would sound like this, but it's sort of like a bell-like quality to it. That's a harmonic. Oh, and usually we play with our fingertips, but he likes us to do these special things where we use the fingernails in certain places. And then there's these Spanish rhythms, da, 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 da. You'll hear that. Note clusters, we just do a very short gliss. You could think of it like that, but it's over a certain number of notes. It can be this way, and it also can be with your nails. That's a cool effect. Oh, the whistle. When you take your hand and run it across the wire strings, sounds kind of like a whistle. And then there's tapping on the sounding board. And that's sort of like drums in this piece. And then there's also these, at the very end, cluster nail glisses. And that's where you, I take all of my fingers like this, and I feel like it sounds like a night breeze or something. It's very lovely. And it's one of the only times that you use your pinky. For this, I get to use my pinky with a nail, but I don't know if you knew, when we play the harp, we don't use our pinkies because they're too short. And I think that's so funny because with the piano, it's an important finger. For the bass or for the melody, the pinky is so crucial. And with the harp, we don't use the pinkies. So those are the different little sound effects that you will hear in Song in the Night by Carlos Salcedo. Thank you so much. Yes, I enjoyed this just playing for you, but I'd love to answer any questions that you might have about the harp. Yes.
Harriet,
Yes.
after watching all those Harpo Marx movies when you were a child, what led you to the harp?
Well, that is so interesting that you would bring him up because he was part of the reason. I did go to symphony orchestra concerts with my family. My mother was a concert pianist. And so we did go, and I loved the harp at the symphony. So I did fall in love with that. But I have to say, I watched the I Love Lucy show with Harpo Marx, and I and later discovered things like Night at the Opera, but when I was young and did see that with him play on I Love Lucy, I do remember that he played Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and I've figured out a rendition of that after hearing him. But I asked my mother then when I was younger, could I take harp lessons for my birthday? I think I asked for my birthday, and she thought it was a cool idea. So she looked right into it. And I started out on a small troubadour harp. You know, you usually start on a smaller harp and then decide whether you want to go further. But that's often what my students do. They rent a harp, and that works out well. You don't have to commit to a big instrument.
Okay, so it's cold outside.
Yes.
You bring your harp inside. How long does it take to set it up so it stabilizes, and how long to tune?
Well, that's a great question too. It does, especially if it's humid, it definitely goes out of tune. So I'm constantly tuning. I probably could have tuned a little right before that last piece, but you know, you just have to do the best you can. And I arrive at least an hour early and tune, and then hopefully just check it again. Always, and it's rather challenging to move it too. So for that reason, I allow a lot of time for myself. But yes, the harp definitely needs to adjust. If I were giving a big recital that was maybe at DePaul, then I would probably bring my harp over a few days before and let it adjust to the environment if I could, if I had that opportunity. But yeah, it's very sensitive.
I have three questions. And the first one is related to what Bruce just asked you. How heavy is it?
Well, the harp is about 100 pounds, something like that,
Wow.
but it might not even be that much, but it's more awkward than heavy, I would
Okay.
say. It's just it's so awkward. I move it with a harp cart,
Okay.
and that's over there. And so that really helps. I just put it on that, but I don't have the fanciest harp cart. Some of them you can take upstairs and things, but mine isn't that way. I get a lot of help from poor strangers getting it in the car and things like that. So thank you. Yes, this is the harp cart. But yes, I definitely find that to be the most challenging, and Kevin's very patient about that. He helps me when I get home, but when I'm going somewhere, I have to rely on others to help me get it out of the car and then get it back into the car, but then I roll it.
So if you're playing with another orchestra in another town, it would be like the piano. You would have to use the harp that they have, I
Well,
assume?
no, that's a
No?
good point. You really take your own usually, but it's a lot of trouble, but you do usually take your own. Because, well, usually people don't have harps where you go, and you also, each harp is slightly different. So you want to adjust to yours. Mine's a Solby, and then the line in Healy is quite a little bit different, not terribly different, but slightly different. So I like when I have a harp at a symphony that already there, but that's not usually the case. Usually you have to bring your own. Yeah, but that would be easier.
And next question, I think all of us are acquainted somewhat with a musical score. You know, the treble clef, the bass clef, the 5 lines, etc. I can't imagine what your score must look like.
Well, I can show you. This is like, it looks a lot like piano music, but the difference is, well, this is green sleeve, so it didn't have many pedals, right? Sure, but I could hold up another score where it would show, yeah, that's a lot like piano music, but I could show you a score of harp repertoire, and we usually have the pedals written in, very much so. I'm very methodical about my pedaling, and I have it all written in, and that, because that's so essential. You could be playing the absolute correct notes here, and if you have one pedal off, it won't sound right. So it's so important to know your pedaling as well. So that's all written in as well. So that's what's different.
But it's kind of like you're rubbing your head with 2 different hands and patting your stomach with 4 different feet and stuff like that. Must be a little complex. Also, since baseball season has just started, if you get a chance, please take me out to the ball game.
Oh.
That would be great fun.
You know,
Thank
I
you.
haven't done that in so long. I could try. I'm trying to think if I can remember how I even did it. At least part of it.
In that last piece where he goes beyond the strings to the sounding board, how is that notated?
Oh, yes, it's squiggly lines underneath the notation. And what's funny is you have to have an instruction page of what these symbols mean, you know, because there's so many unusual ones that you have to look at what in the world does that mean? And then he'll explain it. But that's true. He was just getting very creative. I've even had pieces where you play up in here. You know, they just get extremely creative. One of them has a screwdriver and you're going like this. I mean, it's just crazy what composers come up with.
I'm afraid I have a downer question. Do professional harpists have problems with finger calluses or repetitive motion injuries?
Did you say finger calluses?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I get calluses, but I try to take care of them, and you know, because they actually are good. You don't want to overdo and get blisters, so you work up to calluses basically. And definitely after I've been sitting at the harp for a while, I bend over and do all these exercises. Because yes, I definitely feel it in my back and all. I'm just very careful with my hands. I definitely warm up, but I'm protective of them because I got tendinitis after having my first child. Alice, I kept picking her up like this, and then I'd go play the harp, and then I'd go teach guitar, and then I'd go pick up Alice, and I just overdid it. And so I learned you have to be very protective and careful and warm up extremely well. But yeah, it's true.
I heard recently on the radio, I believe it was Wagner scored one of his pieces. He had a harp and he did not know about the pinky, and he scored it for 5 fingers, and then it had to be completely rescored.
Isn't that
I thought
something?
that was good that
Didn't do his
Wagner-
homework.
Wagner can
And
make a mistake. Yeah.
Also, there's certain composers like Wagner that we sometimes would joke at IU that you might as well be playing a different piece because you can't hear it anyway. You could never hear the harp when they were playing, so that's not a very good thing either. You had to often have like 4 harps to be heard at all in some Wagner. And then some composers like Ravel and Debussy really knew how to write for the harp, and you can hear almost every note, and it's so essential. And so it's okay. Some composers it works a little better.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to ask mine and then I'll walk to you. So we've done this to all the other musicians. How much is a harp?
This Diana Salvi now, we didn't pay this much when I was younger and got it, but it's now I think $35,000 to buy this particular harp. We paid a lot less when I got it when I was in. It's probably, believe it or not, this harp is about 40 years old, and harps age. It's hard to say. They don't age as well as some instruments because you can imagine all of this mechanism. You just you often need to have it regulated, and it's not always great to have an older harp, but I love this harp. I love the tone, and I'm just so grateful that it's held on.
Is there a reason why the top piece of the harp, whose name I've forgotten already, has such a distinctive shape?
This, the neck. Well, I think it does. It is just because of the length of the strings. Yes, I think you're right. And also to make, well, and each string you can see is equally distant so that you can reach easily. But yes, I think it just fits with, because you can see how short this little G string is and then compared to the low C octave. But that's why.
Did you say you've had that 40 years, or how long did you say? How
Yes,
old is
I've
it?
had this harp for over 40 years.
And did you get it new?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
How many have you owned? How many
I don't
harps?
own as many harps as a lot of harpists do. I do have a lovely little, I think it's called Anna harp that's about this tall that my daughters played. And it's almost looks just like this harp, but this tall. And it of course has no pedals. And so that's one harp I have. And then I have a couple of small ones that I either lend or rent to students. Oh, and we have an old harp that was in our house that's an antique that I inherited from our parents that was never playable, but it's pretty.
And do you have a recording of your music?
I have been on some recordings, but that might be on my bucket list to try to make a CD soon, because that would be nice to do. But I have recordings of my recitals, some of the recitals at DePaul, and then some at IU, you know, when I went to school, and then at DePaul, and then I've certainly been a part of some of them. The Grandini aria I played with an organist, and we recorded that. But I don't have a solo CD recently, and I was thinking maybe I should work on that. Suzanne McDonald. Yes, I was so lucky to get to study with her.
Harriet, another strange question. Why do you rest the harp on your shoulder to play?
It works beautifully because then you have access to it. But it's true that there's not, this is one of the things I tell my students right away. It should not feel like a lot of weight on your shoulder. It should just feel like it's almost balancing by itself, but just barely on your shoulder. So you don't even, it's not heavy at all. If you could see how it almost balances right there. I mean, it won't, it would fall, but that's what it should feel like. So you sit up and then this makes it so accessible. That's why you have it there. It's very accessible.
So we met with some of the students this morning, the Google Meet sessions, because we did our children's concerts yesterday, and they always have questions about the harp. And one of the questions they have is, how do you get started on the harp as a kid? And knowing that the instrument is so expensive, how can parents afford to have their kids start on harp?
Yes, and I think that's important to make sure that people know you don't have to invest a great deal of money. I have a number of young students right now that just rent a small harp, and they are learning very well and going to decide in time whether or not to advance to buy a troubadour harp or a small harp. And then maybe way down the road you might look at a pedal harp, but that would probably only be if you were very seriously interested and wanted to pursue that. And sometimes you can get secondhand harps too. They're not quite as expensive. So it's not as out of reach as I think a lot of people think. And you wouldn't believe how many older students I get too that have decided, they go, oh, I always wanted to play the harp. And then I just say, well, why don't you? And then they'll get a small harp and start. And it's amazing how much joy that can bring just to have a small harp. And those can cost something like $500. They don't have to be outrageously expensive. So how much rent for a month? I rent mine rather cheaply, something like $30 a month or $25, but I think at Vanderbilt it might be a little bit more, but you can get them at Vanderbilt in Bloomington and they might be a little bit more there, but it just depends on the harp. It depends on the person. And
Where do you have to take it to get fixed? I mean, if something happens.
The harp regulator.
Yeah.
Well, I learned that supposedly at IU, but I just didn't, I never feel completely comfortable doing it myself. You change the felts and then you change the discs if they are off. So I don't do it myself. And I recently actually got a really good harp regulator I think it was through Vanderbilt Music Company in Bloomington. Michelle recommended one, but then I can also call Lion and Healy in Chicago. So there we have connections, and then they also did a DePaul harp at the same time. So yes, they come and regulate it, but you don't have to do that very often. I don't do it quite often enough, I'm sure. Every few years or so.
Well, what is probably the most asked question that you get about the harp? Other than, how do you carry it? And I'm assuming.
Yeah, how do I carry it? And that's how we decide which car to buy is and what will hold a harp. And we have a Subaru Outback that holds this, and it works really well. But yeah. That's one thing, you're limited in what cars you can get. Once it was so close that we actually had to take the harp to the car dealer to see if it would fit, because when we measured, we weren't certain, and the window came like this, so it was all right. So
I should also mention Harriet gets extra pay because she has to lug this instrument to every single rehearsal.
I appreciate that.
Yes, so it's called a cartage fee. And it's very standard for orchestras and percussionists, depending on how much equipment they have to haul and lug to an orchestra concert, they get an extra fee for that. Harriet typically tries to bring her instrument. So if we have like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday rehearsal, she'll bring the instrument and she'll leave it at Tilson, right?
That's right.
So that she doesn't have to haul it back and forth for every single rehearsal.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things about the harp, but it's worth it.
She wants to know what they do when they regulate.
Oh, they just adjust. You have a strobe tuner, and then they will tune after they change the felts. That's a regular thing, and then they'll check the tuning on each, like the D, and then check the tuning. D natural, check the tuning. If that's off, then they have to adjust this disc, you see, and then they check the tuning D sharp. If if that's off, they'll adjust this disc. So it's a little bit of work, but a lot of times they don't have to do every disc. It's just certain ones get a little off.
Oh, wait a minute, Sherry. I'm walking around, so I'm going to ask my question as I walk outside. What's your favorite piece to play?
You know what? The pieces that I played today are some of my favorites. I love those pieces. And then there are other ones too. A beautiful Spanish piece that I want to bring back by Granados. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but that's another beautiful favorite one. But yes, I often choose things that I love to share.
You all mentioned the children's concert yesterday. That's probably the best thing that the symphony does all year. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how that went, what the children did, what they thought, for people who haven't had a chance to listen to probably about 1,500 fourth graders cheering and applauding and going sis boom ba and hooray. It's really kind of fun.
They really are an appreciative audience.
They are, and they love the harp because she is right up front. As if you've been to an orchestra concert, they can see her, and she plays the cadenza from Waltz of the Flowers from the Nutcracker, and the kids they love it. So we had two concerts yesterday. The 9:30 a.m. had about 1,400 fourth graders in Tilson Auditorium. It was unbelievable, the energy. The very first piece that we play on that concert is Star Wars. And so, Dr. Bowden comes out and we immediately start into Star Wars, and the kids are screaming. We can't even hear ourselves on stage because they're screaming so loud. It's like a rock concert. I mean, it's like going to a Beatles concert. That's literally what it sounded like at Shea Stadium or something. And David has to turn around and kind of, listen now, but they were so well behaved. The flow of the concert is wonderful, the way that David has programmed it so that each family of the orchestra is highlighted. So we do a demo, all the principals stand up and they demonstrate their instrument, and then we play a little piece that features that section of the orchestra. So when we did the harp, we played Waltz of the Flowers so that Harriet got to show them the big cadenza that's in that piece. But then we had private school, homeschool students, and then non-VCSC students came to our 11 a.m. performance. So we had about 500 at that performance. Sometime this summer, we're hoping to expand promotion for that so that folks from Marshall, Illinois and Paris, Illinois, and some other schools in the surrounding area will be able to join us, because like Sherry said, it really is the most important concert that we do every single year. And it's by far the funnest concert that we do every single year. So thanks for asking.
Other questions? Right back to you. Okay.
I got a million of them. What can I say? Well, first of all, I think that if you want to continue to look young, ladies, you need to play the harp because you look like you're about 32. So I think that's a very good thing. That always helps as well. And we're older, so our eyes are a little dim. So maybe that helps. But the harp is such a feminine instrument. Do any men play the harp? Because they should, certainly.
Yeah.
But we always think of it as
That is funny.
girls.
Yes, because I've had male students, and as a matter of fact, right now I have a few at DePaul that not majors, but it's neat that when they do play, and people like Carlos Salcedo and Marcel Grangeni, they were all males, and a lot have written for the harp too. But it is funny how it gets that people just have that stereotype, but there are definitely male harpists as well.
Because you just described them as harpists, why did you start out calling them harpers?
Oh, yes. I think that's something that they do. I noticed Sylvia Woods, who is a big, smaller harp player, calls it harper. But it might be that a lot of the people that play The small harps call themselves harpers, but I think it's both really. It's both. Interchangeable. I think so. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming. And before we
Yes.
leave, I want Sammy to kind of walk us through. We have a concert this weekend. We have a concert at the end of the month. And then we have all of next year. So I already had people ask about season tickets. So why don't you give us some highlights?
Absolutely. So yes, we have a sold out Disney concert this weekend. Yay. So excited. It should be a great show. We'll have video projections and Dr. Bowden will be trying to sync the orchestra to the videos without a click track. So congratulate him if he makes it through it successfully by the end of the performance. So that's sold out. We do have another concert at the end of the month on April 30th. We're welcoming Drew Peterson. He's a pianist. He's going to play Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto with us. Unfortunately, Dee-Woo will not be able to join us. She is very pregnant right now and she's having some complications. So hopefully we will have her back to Terre Haute at some point in the future. We love her. And we will have, if you are coming to the Disney concert this weekend, we will have season ticket renewals. In fact, I'm going to head back to my office and I'm going to send all of our season ticket holders a preview of our 22-23 season that we are going to announce tomorrow. There's a lot of exciting things coming next season. I'm really looking forward to it. So we will have season ticket renewals tomorrow at Disney and also on April 30th. During that our Brahms and Rachmaninoff concert too. So renew your season tickets. We will have an early bird special until May 13th. Any questions about that? Oh yeah. Oh, supper at the Symphony. Yes, if you've never been to supper at the Symphony, highly recommend it. Because of Tilson, it's in Tyree Hall. We have the wonderful opportunity to use the McKee Family Heritage Ballroom. We do a dinner every concert. Before the concert, we do a 3-course meal. It is catered by THSO, which is excellent food. Tickets are only $25 per person, which is a great deal for a 3-course meal, and it's great food. We can have up to 172 guests for that, but it's an easy way to come get dinner and then go to a concert. It's a great date night. You only have to park once, which is great. Typically, dinners close, the reservations close the Tuesday before a concert, so we're already closed for Disney. However, I will have the menus up for the Brahms and Rachmaninoff concert, hopefully here in the next week, and send out an email. So if you do not get our emails yet, go online to thso.org, click on contact and sign up for our email list so that you know all the cool new things coming with the Terre Haute Symphony Orchestra. Yes, concert conversations. Yes, yes. It's an absolute wonderful experience. I don't know of many other organizations that do such a dinner before the concert. So it's really, really wonderful. So.
That's really cool. We got to sit with piano soloists and talking with and being a pianist and talking with them at the dinner table.
We do try to, a lot of our musicians will actually help with check-in for the dinner. And then I try to place them at tables around amongst the audience so that you get to actually talk to a musician and have dinner with a THSO musician. So there are 3 levels of season tickets. There's a silver level for the early bird. It's $79 a piece. That's all 5 concerts. The second level, which is the gold level, I believe, don't quote me on this, I think they're $139 a piece. And then the platinum level, which is the top level, best seats in the house, are $199 a piece. Once we get past May 13th, they go up. I believe platinum level is $219 a piece. The gold level is $165 a piece. And then the silver level will be $89 a piece. So get your season tickets early and save some money. Yes. Our next OLLI presentation is part of our concert journey series. So we will have a THSO musician come and do a presentation about the repertoire that you're going to hear at the April 30th concert for Brahms and Rachmaninoff. And we'll share a little bit about the guest artist, Drew Peterson. Yes, we are going to take a break in the summer. I have a new operations manager that I need to hire and train. So we're going to take a little break of tour of the orchestra for the summer, but we will be back in the fall. I'm really excited. This has been a wonderful partnership to work with Michelle. And I mean, I love seeing everybody here. So we will do that in the fall.
Thank you.
Thank you.